everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Silicon Dreams. This is your show host, RJ Sonia, the founder of Orbis 86. And joining me in the Radio Zindagi studio today, I have Kenneth Hurley. Ken is the founder and CEO of GNUS.AI. Doesn't the name itself sound intriguing? So let's go ahead and learn more about Ken and about GNUS.AI in our episode today of the Silicon Dreams. Ken, welcome to the Silicon Dreams. Welcome to Radio Zindagi.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. I appreciate it. It was very nice of you to invite us over to talk about Genius. It's a great project that I've been working on for a long time now. I personally been in the space for since 2016. And I also have a background in software engineering. That's how I started. And so there's a lot of my passion in software rolled into this, and a lot of my career rolled into this project that it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Well, Ken, let's chat quickly about your background, right? Like, what have you done in the past couple of decades of your career? And then how did all of those things lead you to founding Genius?
Yeah, so I actually started out programming video games back in the 80s.
Wow.
And I programmed the Rampage for the IBM PC, the Amiga, and the Apple II was really my first project. And then I did some stuff on the Atari ST, something called Sortica Dash. I have about 25 games on my resume, a lot of them from the software engineering side. But then I kind of had my own company and realized that we needed to go onto the cloud back in 2013 because I really liked what they were doing. And so I took my company, my game company, onto the cloud, and we're going to do cloud games. And so I got up to speed on cloud infrastructure and things like that. And then after the company, we had a downturn in the business in like 2010 because the Wii kind of died and all the software died for the Wii. I went out and started doing some infrastructure stuff and here and there, and then I went to work for NVIDIA for 4 years. So that was a good time. Actually, it's the inverse. I went to work for NVIDIA after EA, but then when I had my own game company, I got up to speed on AWS. I forgot the timing of that. NVIDIA was 1999 to 2003. So
you've been working for like 3-4 decades now.
Yeah, 4 decades.
It's very easy to get the timelines jumbled up. But you have worked with pretty much all of them. Like you said, Atari, you mentioned Electronic Arts. And for folks listening to the show, if you guys aren't gamers, then these are like some of the biggest gaming companies. And you also obviously worked for NVIDIA right around the time it was founded, because NVIDIA was founded in late 90s and you were with them right at the beginning.
Yeah, I was employee 249. So the first, one of the first ones hired after the initial public offering, the IPO. And so that was a great time to be there because it was really just when it was just taking off. And
absolutely. And I'm pretty sure they were giving out good stock options too.
Yeah, they were definitely.
Well, so now let's talk about how did all of that accumulate to the founding of Genius.AI. And perhaps before we get to that, you can quickly let our audiences know what is Genius.AI, because the name itself sounds so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool technology. Like I said, that was a culmination of my career. What it does is it's this, it allows you to basically process AI on your phone or your home computer or any idle resource that's like that, even like your set-top boxes that you use for streaming video and things like that. We can actually leverage what's called a GPU on there. And we do that in this decentralized mechanism. What that means is that it doesn't go through Amazon, it doesn't go through Google or anything like that. They all talk to each other. So your phone will talk to your home computer, which will talk to somebody's computer in London or somebody in Africa. They'll talk to each other and they'll basically process AI. And then everybody that's talking to each other over this network basically gets paid to do the AI processing. So it becomes very inexpensive for companies to do AI processing because now we're paying out to individuals that are at home that may not have a great income, but they can make a few dollars here and there basically by having a phone or a computer.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. And we'll delve more into this just in a few minutes. But before we get into the whole jungle of tech terms that we just dropped on our users here, we have been talking about GPUs, right? We have been talking about establishing peer-to-peer networks in a way, right? Where it's over the network that people are talking to each other, a decentralized network, how we like to call it now. But before all of this, what led you to found Genius AI? I know you spoke about your career with gaming and then with infrastructure as well. So then how did all of that realize you had to form Genius AI?
Well, so actually in 2016, I was very interested in what cryptocurrencies were doing, especially Ethereum, because they were using GPUs, which is a graphics processing unit. It's a chip that traditionally was for rendering graphics in games. And so when I was working for NVIDIA, I was teaching people how to put GPUs into games or use the hardware basically to make their games faster. And so I kind of got interested why crypto was using them. And so I had no idea. I'm like, why, what could they possibly use GPUs for that's rendering? So I kind of tore apart something called proof of work, which is basically, it helps make the network secure. And in there, they were using GPUs, and I looked at kind of how they were using the GPU, and it was really a lot like artificial intelligence processing, almost identical. And so kind of a light bulb goes off, and I'm like, wow, there's all these GPUs available all over the world that are sitting there. I have my computers on all the time, my phone's on all the time. It has a GPU. Let's use that for something. And then I started looking around, and a company, a group, and it's not really a company, out of Stanford was doing something called protein folding. And they use GPUs to do AI on protein folding to figure out how proteins fold to cure cancer. But they had to go out and they had to buy GPUs from like Amazon and Google and all that. So they had this constant battle where they were trying to raise money so they could pay for GPUs to cure cancer. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's all these GPUs that are sitting idle. Why don't we just use those?
Absolutely.
So in 2016, I started designing and architecting with my software background a system to do exactly that. And then use cryptocurrency as kind of a payment system to reduce the cost, 1000x basically, as much as I could, to see if we could get that resource available to people like protein folding at home, and others to cure cancer or solve health problems or do any number of things that AI can do.
That's a fabulous story. And here's the thing, right? A lot of times people don't realize that we have this tiny little device in our hand today, which actually does a lot more computation much faster than what the supercomputer did back in 80s, right?
Yeah.
And we absolutely underestimate or don't even realize the power we harness just in the palm of our hands when we are holding our mobile phones, right? Most of the people would probably use it just to chat on WhatsApp or watch videos on TikTok or YouTube and whatnot. But in the back end, it is such a beast that we're holding. And you're talking about leveraging an interconnected network of all of these devices to give people the resources that they need that they may or may not generally be able to afford paying big dollars for, right? Now, since we were talking about GPUs, perhaps you could also, Ken, quickly talk to our users about the history of GPUs too. I know for a lot of people to think about graphical processing units, and even with us back in college, and this was in 2000s, GPUs and NVIDIA was just synonymous with EA, with the gaming side of things, right? Because their GPUs would be used in games. But when my husband got hired for NVIDIA in 2008, he has not once worked on the gaming side of things. He has always worked on something else, from working on like the Tegra chip that has been used in like Android TVs and whatnot, to now working on autonomous vehicles, right? So perhaps you can talk about the fascinating story of GPUs and how it really expedites processing because of the multiple cores it has compared to CPU.
Right. So in general, back in the day when we were writing video games, in the 80s and 90s, hardware wasn't available. And what the hardware does is it speeds up mathematics. And so the mathematics is necessary when you get into 3D graphics to basically render stuff. And what that means is produced from like a 3D model, which is a bunch of points and triangles and stuff like that. And you have to render it into a 2D screen, which is like pixels on a screen. And so that requires a lot of processing power. And so what they did was they do these little chunks of processing power that are broken up across different sets of pixels, like a 4x4 set of pixels. And then they can do it all in parallel, meaning they can do it all at once instead of linear, like in a CPU. When you execute instructions, it does it linear, but in graphics and on the processors, the GPUs, the graphics processing units, I think they kind of changed the name after they realized it could be used for AI. They called it more general purpose processors because it's really doing a bunch of math. And that's
Exactly.
what AI is doing, is a bunch of math.
And a lot of parallel processing, as you said,
Yeah.
right? Most of the times our CPUs, the best ones that we use even in servers and stuff, have 16 cores or 32 cores. But GPUs typically have hundreds of cores to expedite your parallel processing.
And they're very specific too. A lot of the CPU is very generic about, execute an instruction, and you can have things where, you're running along and one of the cores has to pause waiting for the other cores, right? In the GPU side of things, that's never the case because, well, sometimes it's the case, but rarely. But it's kind of almost, that's why they have cache on the CPU and things like that to speed it up and all that. But it doesn't compete with the GPU because the GPU is really, really geared towards doing those mathematical operations.
It
And the
is
CPU is
focused.
generic operations.
That's actually a great difference to point out. In fact, folks, if you're listening in, right, the graphical processing units, as we spoke about them, or the general purpose units, whatever we call them now, the GPUs, as Ken mentioned, they started their journey with games, with graphics and rendering, because that is where the biggest use case was when GPUs were launched. But in the past few years, GPUs have been involved in almost everything. As Ken was saying, you may not even realize it, but all of our phones are also equipped with GPUs. But besides that, even in major applications throughout the past couple of decades, from data centers, your data centers, you have your cloud processing units. In fact, even with mining, right? We were talking about cryptocurrency and mining, and a lot of these folks, Ethereum recently moved to proof of stake. So you don't have people technically mining and solving computational problems now, but Bitcoin is still proof of work, and a lot of the miners are still using their GPUs to solve for that. But this also means that over the past couple of decades, especially like with enterprises, right, with data centers and stuff, they are constantly upgrading their equipment. And obviously, people who are mining for Ethereum now, they have a bunch of GPUs and ASIC processors, etc., that can perform parallel computing, but it's not being used. It means that we now have like a lot of infrastructure also available that may not be leveraged to the best of its capability. So then how does Genius leverage that pool, and then how can people connect to Genius? Is it live? When can people get on the main net and start working with it? Let's chat about that.
Yeah, just one point of clarification. Actually, proof of work on Ethereum does use GPUs, but on Bitcoin, it uses ASICs, and those are not, they are general purpose processors, but not in the same sense as a GPU. You can't use them for AI, for instance, or maybe you could, but nobody's tried it yet. It's much more difficult. Genius right now is at a point where we had launched back in March the token, and the token was kind of to basically test the waters to see how useful it was on a multi-chain platform, because it goes across multiple chains. It works on Ethereum, and actually it is going to work on Bitcoin, but it'll leverage the GPU on your phone and then pay out in Bitcoin ordinals. So it still will leverage that. But that's kind of what we do, is the underlying system is its own blockchain. And then it rolls up, meaning that you can transfer those tokens out to Ethereum or out to Bitcoin or out to Cardano or any of the other chains. And so we launched, and then we were working on trying to put out the test net, and we had somebody hack one of the, not our smart contracts, but another kind of sister smart contract that allowed them to mint some of our tokens. And so we went back kind of saying, okay, well, we need to do a little bit more security on this. And so we're working on getting the test net out this quarter lately, but it's all been a security kind of overhaul to make sure that nothing can happen to the tokens ever again. The good news is the token itself wasn't affected. It was just they were able to mint new tokens, which we and drain some money out of one of our what they call liquidity pool.
Pools.
Yeah. So, but in general, we're still working. That's not going to ever kill a project, because this is a passion project for me. I started in 2016 to help cure cancer. So, and we have been working with Department of Homeland Security and FBI to kind of recover the funds on that so that we can put it back into the liquidity pools and things like that. But the token is trading right now. And the use of the token, though, is for people to basically use that to do AI processing. It's getting close. And I think by the end of the year, we'll definitely have mainnet up and running, and then keep going with the serving. And we have a bunch of things in place for running the system.
So, folks, in the world of decentralized anything, security is obviously a main contender for attention. And the reason being that, unlike your traditional centralized processes, decentralized is out there. It's out there for the public to decode, for the public to access. And in most cases, if you get onto a decentralized network, you hold the security, you hold the keys, etc., in your hands. And what that entails is it comes with great power, but as we know from the famous quote from all Spider-Man movies, with great power comes great responsibility. And what that means is now you're also responsible for the security. And just like Ken said, even though decentralized networks are fairly secure compared to what some of the older technologies we have seen, however, there could be some issues for what are sometimes even with solidity, sometimes with even the programming language itself, there could be bugs due to tech debt, technical debt, etc. And you have to plan for that. But Ken, I really appreciate you being so open and honest and talking about the hack, because a lot of the times people like to just dust it off under the rug, right? But these are things that we need to talk about, because these are the things that every entrepreneur's journey, especially in this decentralized world. And I always tell people that the decentralized world is the place where you lead with security versus usability at times, right? Or at many times, because security is paramount. Now, can you talk about the evolution of Genius since 2016 to now 2024?
Yeah. So in 2016, again, when I started that, then I architected the system, I wrote it up, and then I wrote a patent in 2018. We filed the patent in January 2019. And after I did that, it got issued in 2022, and we started working on it. And then kind of COVID hit, so we're slowed down a little bit. And I had 2 Russian programmers that were helping me quite a bit. So we got slowed down again when the Ukrainian-Russian war happened. Not to laugh about that, but it's more oh my God, I can't pay the Russian engineers anymore. And so that slowed it down. And about 2 years ago, I was able to get some other engineers around the world. And so we're really, really decentralized. We have a couple in Mexico, a couple in Brazil, all over the place. And so we began working on that. And then like I said, we launched in March of this year because we were pretty close for usability, as you had said. And we did a lot of security on our own contracts. I mean, our own contracts haven't been hacked. But it was really when we interfaced with a bridging mechanism with somebody else's contract, they were able to hack that and then basically interface to our contract. We've learned our lesson on that one. We're going to do a lot of security on other people's contracts that are interfacing with us as well.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure.
And just for reference, most of the hacks on chain have happened on bridges.
Yep.
One of the largest ones I remember was on Wormhole, and the Wormhole bridge is used by tens of thousands of people every day, if not millions. And that was a big hack. If I remember correctly, it was upwards of $80 or $100 million when the bridge was hacked. Yeah. And most of the times it's the bridges that get compromised. And one of the reasons for the bridges getting compromised is because whenever a bridge is involved, not everything is on chain. You always have some off chain components. And for the folks listening in, on chain is when you have everything on the blockchain or on a ledger and it's transparent and everyone can see it. Off chain is anything that is built outside of this network. And off chain things are important because today most of the world and most of the applications are not online. They are not on chain. So you always need to interface with those. But it's good to know that, you identify the culprit early, and we always see things that could impact like a token sprites, etc. But the thing is that over a longer period of time, it's mostly the utility and how people value a token that ultimately gives it its value, and the floor prices rise from there.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk about the status of Genius today, and also in the near future, what would be some of the main domains that Genius would actually be focusing on? So for example, I know that Genius has been interfacing with a lot of gaming companies. So I'm interested to learn more about what's happening in the world of GNUS.AI, especially over the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, so the gaming side of that came in around 2020. From my gaming background, actually, we figured out that the infrastructure that we were building helped games, not just Web3 games, but any old game that's been out there or is out there can retrofit their game to actually interface to our infrastructure, which gives them blockchain access, but also gives them a monetization channel. Because now when you're playing a game in the background, we can still use your extra resources, your extra GPU to basically do AI processing. So the game developer can split the payment with the game player. And so he no longer has to figure out how to monetize that game player. And so it cuts out a lot of friction from the game developer. And then after that, a couple friends of mine who were in the gaming industry, it was like, well, I have a sleep application that I use at home on my iPad and I sleep all night with it. And I said, yeah, we could do that too. And all of a sudden we started realizing it's not just games, it's any application that wants to monetize somehow. And so you no longer have to worry about ads or finding the paid players or anything like that with our system. And so coming from the game industry, I was able to architect our system and upgrade it to actually allow for this kind of infrastructure for games to use and interface to the blockchain. So we call it negative friction monetization because we're zero friction to integrate, but we're removing other frictions from game developers, including how to monetize, how to market, how to find your paid players and all that. So it kind of turned into this really big monster. And then we just signed an agreement recently with NextLogic, which is an internet service provider over in the Philippines. And what they do is they stream video to all their, I think they have something like 200,000 or a couple 100,000 users that have these set-top boxes. Well, all the set-top boxes have GPUs in them these days. And we're like, oh, well, we can use that. We can leverage that to do AI, and we can pay out your people watching videos while they're watching videos to do the AI processing for the rest of the world. And they're like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Let's do it. So we signed an agreement with them to do that once we launch. We're going to put them on testnet, and then they're going to help us test it for, a couple months until it's solid. And so it just kind of spiraled into this really, any application can really easily hook into the blockchain without, it's all behind the scenes and you don't even know or have to worry about that you're interfacing to the blockchain.
Also, for folks who might be a little technical out there in the audience, they might be wondering that, hey, if they are playing a game, for example, on their phone, right? And now the game is integrated with Genius SDK, with the Genius Development Kit. So they might be playing the game. They may not even realize that, hey, in the background, the game is leveraging their GPU and using that GPU's prowess to process AI. And of course, these people can get paid. But a concern people might have is, will it slow down their phone? Will it just heat it up, make harder to use their phones?
Yeah, no, not at all. In fact, how this came about was because I was talking with Apple. I was interviewing for a GPU manager position there. We got to talking and they said they optimized the phone so much and the GPU for battery life that it was only using 50% of your GPU these days. And that was only on the AAA, the high-end games that are really graphics intensive. Well, most of the games aren't graphic intensive. They're like these really 2D kind of casual games.
Pixel games,
yeah.
2D games.
And coming from NVIDIA, I know how they operate and how much of the resources they're using. And so I kind of paper napkined it and I said, well, these are probably only using maybe 10%. And so usually the games that heat up is the ones that have the screen on all the time and it's really bright. And my wife plays a casual game. That's how I know this is true. And so it's a combination of the screen and it's not really the GPU that's heating that up on these casual games because they're barely using any of it. It's more the processor and the lighting and the backlighting and all that kind of stuff. So that's using the battery. And if you ever look, in fact, I kind of proved this to myself because I went and looked at what the battery usage was. And most of the time it was screen for me.
Right. For most people, it is the screen, right?
Yeah.
The screen time. That's what they say, reduce your screen time. But what this means for the people out there who are just perhaps, I know right now it's just in Philippines, but maybe 5 years from now, while you're watching Netflix and chilling at your home or you're playing just hyper casual games on your phones, etc., you could also just be earning passively while you're having fun without really stressing yourself out because, you have a good high-end phone or even a decent set-top box. And all of those devices are now working for you to generate some income for you. And it could be a few dollars, it could be a couple of $100, but it is money that you didn't have in your pocket earlier. And now you can use it. And in a lot of parts of the world, a few dollars a month go a very long way, right? So this is definitely an income potential for even those countries where their average annual income is like 300 to 500 or even $1,000,
Yeah.
right? And in fact, even for India, it's just 2,200 a year that is the per capita income. So Genius is doing a great job in trying to, add money into the pockets of the users without them really being slowed down. And folks, we also spoke about games. One of the things I wanted to mention about gaming publishers on the App Store, and I was just looking up the data, was that more than half of the game publishers on App Store, they have just made like $1,000 from the game, which means that a lot of these gaming app publishers are also not making money. So when they use the Genius SDK in their app, the people playing the games can also make money as well as the gaming publishers can make money. So this definitely, motivates more people to put good work out there, because from Google Ads revenue, there's hardly pennies that can be made unless you have like millions of people playing millions of games every day.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the Genius thing is because my wife was playing a game and she was paying a lot of money to this game, I got kind of mad and I said, okay, I'm going to fix that where you don't have to pay money for games anymore by making these free, or actually you'll get paid to play these games. And so we call it play and earn. There's not play to earn. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be playing a game or using the app. And so the numbers are actually worse than you think they are. We did a lot of research, and I verified this with an Apple employee who I met at a meeting, and it's 96.5% of the applications in the games make $0 for Apple or the game developer.
Oh, wow.
96.5. And of that 3.5%, they can only monetize between like 2 and 15% of their players. And so there's a whole another 85% of their players they can also monetize. And we verified this actually at the Game Developers Conference. There was a company that was talking to us and they're like, yeah, we can monetize really well in America and the UK. But like when we go to India, we make $0 over in India. We could integrate yours, make $0. And then all the Indian people that are playing the games can sit there and make money as well, turn around and use that for like doctors or something like that. And so we kind of became an impact platform as well. And so a lot of family offices realized, hey, you can have an impact in a lot of these areas that we're trying to have impact on. You can measure it because you're on the blockchain. You can pay them out directly, these people that don't have bank accounts and things like that. So this is a great opportunity for us to kind of come in here and do some impact investing as well. So this kind of ballooned into this extraordinary genius project, really.
So that, guys, is Genius. And now you know the story behind GNUS.AI and you know more about Ken. Ken, before we wrap up the segment, where can people find you?
Yeah, so if you go to GNUS.AI, we have two companies. It's Genius Ventures was the original company that we started in GNUS.AI. It's GNUS.AI. And I joke that I type so fast I missed the I and the E and the I in Genius. And it kind of goes along with the crypto thing where, holdle is really hold because somebody misspelled it, but it's GNUS.AI. And also it was Genius, regular full easier. Genius was taken. It's easier. And the other one was taken. So it's okay.
It's always the domain names.
Yeah. So if you go there, and we're heavy on Telegram, and we're very public about our GitHub and our software and all that. And so you can actually track what we're doing on GitHub, and we, there's channels that you can check for, what we're working on and things like that, and show that we're actually working on the security side of things right now.
So, folks, again, that was Ken from GNUS.AI on the Silicon Dreams and Radio Zindagi. Go and look at GNUS.AI. That's their website. From there, you can go to their various channels and keep an eye out on the progression of GNUS.AIs, because who knows, in a couple of years, again, an app on your phone or the set-top box in your living room, all of these could come equipped with a connection to Genius, and you may not even realize it, but you'd be mining tokens of GNUS.AI. So with that, Ken, thank you so much for your time again. And folks, you were listening to The Silicon Dreams with me, RJ Sonia. It's time to say goodbye and see you again next week on a Monday. Until then, G.A. Ja.